I think a couple of points. One, we want to talk about the recognition that we're in a 2-year biennium, and we saw a large tax increase last year, over $2 billion, and a large spending increase, over 10% growth in spending. And we thought some of those taxes were unwise, and we advocated for their repeal. And fortunately, Democrats agreed with us, and we did repeal some of those bad taxes, the warehousing tax, the sales equipment repair tax, and so forth. That was a good thing. But we're still left with, after all that, a $1.7 billion increase for the biennium in taxes, and with the additional spending that we're taking in, about 11% growth in spending. We think that is something that people need to recognize. That is the record of the Democrats in the majority, with total control of government, all the branches. The other thing that we're talking about is to recognize that a number of the big issues that we've dealt with in the last couple of years have met with bipartisan opposition. Democrats joining Republicans in voting against some of these initiatives that seem to be driven by a metro area, extremely liberal faction of the Democratic Party. And we think that's not good for Minnesota. Republicans have always had a willingness to work with Democrats, offer alternatives. In many cases, we've had them introduced as bills that haven't been heard. So there have been alternatives offered, but we have been pretty much shut out of the discussion, and there have been a very partisan approach to solving these major issues. Minimum wage, the health care, Obamacare certainly, the bullying bill, the new Senate office building. All these things have been done in a very partisan way, and we need to have some more bipartisan approach to solving these problems.
Okay.
Well, again, that was one of the bills that we had Democrats joining with Republicans voting against the bill that the Democrats offered. We did have a Republican version that conformed to the federal minimum wage rate that would put us on par with the neighboring states that we compete with. Also had a way of dealing with tipped employees, which is an issue that we need to recognize, as well as preserving the hours for the farm laborers and a carve-out for younger workers. So that was the Republican alternative, which was a more balanced plan and one that had, we thought, a little bit more temperate approach to solving this problem. We're very concerned that this ramping up to $9.50 an hour in minimum wage is going to put us at a competitive disadvantage to our neighboring states, especially in the areas of the state that have border communities that are close to other states' communities. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why Democrats joined with Republicans to say that's not a great idea for Minnesota. So there are some things that I think we all could agree on, but that bipartisan approach was rejected by Democrats in favor of a very, very extreme approach to this minimum wage issue.
No problem. Republican leadership, and I should have known, but
Yep.
okay.
I'm always a Senate Minority Leader, House
Right.
Minority Leader.
We have comparable positions in the two different.
How long have you had that?
Well, you know, obviously, this is going to be an important election. I think for the first time in more than 20 years, we have single-party control of state government in Minnesota. The Democrats have control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. We think that hasn't served Minnesota very well, and there's some real glaring examples of that. And frankly, we believe that Minnesota is better served when Republicans and Democrats have to come to the table and work together. So we're going to make a case that we want to bring some balance back to state government in St. Paul, and we think that Minnesotans, that message resonates well with Minnesotans. We have done some things or encouraged Democrats to do some things. Obviously, they put in place $2.1 billion of tax increases last session. We knew that those were going to be damaging Minnesota's economy. We put enough pressure on Democrats to get them to repeal at least some of those damaging tax increases. We're also pretty proud of the fact that we got them to fully fund, at least it looks like at this point, the 5% campaign, which is basically giving a 5% increase to the people who take care of the disabled and some of our most vulnerable. That's pretty important, and at a time when we've got a $1.2 billion surplus, those are the kinds of priorities I think that we think Minnesotans expect. Now, on the flip side of that, Democrats have done a lot this session that has been very, very partisan. A lot of it has passed without a single Republican vote. Most of it has passed without a single Republican vote. Things like the Senate office building. It's a $90 million building that even the governor called just 3 or 4 weeks ago called lavish and un-Minnesotan. This is something that we probably hear about more than any other issue, and I think it's a crowning example of self-service in St. Paul by Democrats, not public service. And Minnesotans don't like it. So, there are a lot of reasons why single-party control hasn't served the state very well, and that's probably chief among them. You know, I can certainly just talk maybe a little more generally about the election itself. I mean, we need 7 seats to win the majority back in the House out of 134. That's a pretty small number. It may sound like a lot, but it's actually really small. In 2010, to put it into perspective, we won 25 seats when we took the majority in 2010. And in 2012, we lost 11 seats when we lost the majority. So 7 is a small number. It's a non-presidential year, which always tends to favor Republicans, and it's the second term, midterm of an incumbent president, which tends to not favor the incumbent's party. Also, we get issues like the Senate office building, and MNsure has been an issue that we also find is really resonating with people. This was, maybe the chief, accomplishment or the cornerstone legislation to not only the Democrats here in Minnesota, but also nationally with Obamacare. And it has been, a disastrous rollout. For one, the website, the call centers, those kinds of things. The customer service side of it has been bad. But deeper than just that side of it, those things can be repaired. The actual plan and idea itself is flawed. Just within the last couple of weeks, they announced that they had met their goals for enrollment. Unfortunately, what they didn't tell you is that they had to revise their goals downwards 6 times in order to meet those goals, and they still really didn't meet them. They missed their original goals by 87% on enrollment on the private side. On the public side, where people don't pay for the coverage, they exceeded their goal by 300%. Now, what that tells you is that the younger, healthier population that you need involved in MNsure to make it sustainable over the long term didn't show up. They're not signing up. And unfortunately, what that means for everybody else that is in the MNsure program, when they reassess their risk pool and create new rates for the next year, when they do that this fall, it means that rates are going to go through the roof. And not yet has there been one bill traveling through committee or one bill on the House floor to deal with this issue this session. And we just have a few weeks left. Now is not the time for Democrats to put their head in the sand and pretend like this issue is going to go away. They need to step up. This was their idea. They need to step up and show the responsibility to put fixes in place now. This is going to be our last opportunity before this fall. One of the things that we have talked about is the single party control. Now, MNsure was passed without a single Republican vote. It's something that we didn't think was a good idea and we thought it was flawed. But I'll tell you what, last year, when it was working its way through the legislative process, I, as the leader, told my members, roll up your sleeves, participate in committee. Let's put our best ideas forward because this is going to happen. Let's try to make it the best bill we can. Democrats rejected over 100 of our amendments, both in committee and on the floor. Really common sense things like putting people on the MNsure board that had real world experience with health insurance, oversight type things, a lot of different things that really would have made it function better. And I hate to be the one that says I told you so, but they rejected our ideas and they passed it on a completely party line vote. And unfortunately now they're failing to listen to us when we're raising the warning signs of what's coming this fall. So we'll be there with them to fix it, but they have to admit that there's some problems and realize that it does need to be fixed.